We're following the latest on an emergency situation at Volunteer High School. This following an incident early this morning, shortly before 8 o'clock this morning. We are awaiting a news conference now, and we expect to hear from Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, as well as Churchill Police Chief Chad Mosley. They are expected to address the media in just a moments. Earlier this morning, we heard from Matt Hickson, the Director of Schools at Hawkins County, also Chris Vaughn from the Churchill Rescue Squad. Now we turn our attention to the podium, where Ronnie Lawson and Chad Mosley are about to address the media.
Good afternoon. This morning, just before 8 o'clock a.m., the Hawkins County 911 Center received a complaint from an individual to be a student at Volunteer High School. He advised the dispatcher that he'd been bullied and harassed by popular students, that he was in the main bathroom at Volunteer and he was armed with a handgun. He said he was next to the office. He was going to make his way to the gymnasium where he was going to shoot his gun. The school was immediately placed on lockdown as deputies from my office and officers of the Churchill Police Department. We all responded immediately. Even had one Churchill officer inside Volunteer High School while the shooter was still on the phone with the dispatcher. Numerous agencies from the surrounding counties and cities all came to the area. We done a thorough search. We evacuated as many students as we possibly could on the initial search. Then went back and done a thorough search and got all the students out. At this time, everything appears to be this call was a hoax. The Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, along with the Churchill Police Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, were determined to find where this call originated from. This investigation is still ongoing. There's been some speculation that there was injuries. During this time of this call, there was a student that was sick, having a seizure, and Hawkins County EMS was on the scene, being assisted by my SRO. Was totally unrelated. There's no signs in this school of an active shooter, no signs that a weapon had been fired, and no injuries to any student or faculty. Chief?
We just have detectives still on scene right now trying to gather evidence and interview some people, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more, as this plays out. But, I just want to say the same things. All the kids are safe. We had no injuries to staff or any person there on the at Volunteer this morning.
Let's take a couple of questions.
So we talked to a student who said that she heard gunshots and screaming. You can unequivocally say there was no shots fired.
Absolutely, there was no gunfire in that side of that school. Absolutely not.
Was the person who made the phone call a student or like a youth?
They didn't give their name, and they just portrayed themselves as being at the school.
Was that call recorded by 911?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
We heard also from a student that said that an officer came into the gym saying that there was an active shooter situation and that person was barricaded in the bathroom. Where did that information come from, and why were students hearing that? Fake
news with social media that hinders every investigation.
When Sergeant Dean made entry into the school, he was the first one there. School hadn't been placed on lockdown from my understanding at that time, and he was himself warning kids to go into lockdown. So that may have been where that come from.
So since you guys have not determined the originator of this phone call, is it safe for students to go back to school tomorrow when you don't know where that phone call came from, if it was real or fake?
Absolutely, to be safe. We'll have officers present. There are officers there now. We've briefed the faculty. They know exactly what was going on and what we did and why we did everything. And most shooters don't call them more than anybody. They just show up.
Can you talk a little bit about all the protocols that were in place? And earlier the Director of Schools mentioned how quickly responders were on the scene. Can you talk a little bit about how all of those active shooter trainings might have been very beneficial this morning?
We pre-planned for years with the local fire departments, EMS, other surrounding agencies. So we have trained for this for years. So everybody knows the plan and knows where they're to go.
What additional security measures will be in place at Volunteer High tomorrow? Which we've talked to a lot of students who are, of course, after today, anxious about going back. So what precautions will be in place tomorrow for students returning to class?
That's not for media release. That's for safety of the students and the faculty.
But there will be additional precautions that will not be in place in a normal situation, yes or no?
Undetermined this time.
Okay.
Well, this was a huge response by law enforcement and other agencies. I imagine that this was a huge expenditure on the part of you all and rescue agencies also. So can you talk a little bit about the resources that were committed to this thing and how that could create a danger for other areas in the community where these resources are not available to them? And I know whenever something like this happens, that's usually the biggest concern, is that you're pulling resources for a hoax away from a potential real situation.
When the agencies respond, they don't send everybody they have. Just like my officers all responded, but I had officers from other agencies answering calls for me. And that's the whole thing about it is, if something happens in another county, then I'm going to send as many people as I possibly can, but I still have to run my office, and they're all the same way. Most of them were tactical units from the surrounding areas and counties.
A lot of parents and students were stressed and worried because of the amount of rumors that are out there about what was going on or what could have been going on. Did those rumors hinder anything in what you guys were doing?
Just in the Summer Wales case, everybody pays attention to rumors and lies, and it just hinders us. But today, we didn't have a clue what anybody was putting out, and we don't watch social media. We don't mess with it. But as the days to come and speculation, even after this, you'll have people that want to stir up stuff. But right here, we're telling you straight up, this was a hoax. There was no gunfire, nobody injured, and thank God everybody's safe.
What would you like for parents to know? Obviously, this situation, like you said, they're very, shaken up, and kids. It's the second day of school. What would you guys like for parents to know this afternoon?
Just like to know that we're there, we're watching out for the safety of their kids, we're making sure their kids are getting to where they need to be safely, and we need the parents to remain calm for the kids. That would help us tremendously.
Do you believe there's any threat to the community? I know that you guys have not found where this call came from, but do you believe there's any threat? Should people in the area be alarmed for any reason?
Don't see any reason for them to.
And my officers over the years have been trained in every school for such thing. And we've always stressed, even to the congregation, we teach church safety. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it happens. And we were well prepared today, and all the officers done an amazing job, and the staff and the students, and everything went fine, and everybody goes home tonight.
Do you have anything to point that this was a hoax besides the precedent that you mentioned that, usually people don't call in things like this, but outside of precedent, is there anything that you found that can prove to you that this was a hoax and it wasn't real?
Absolutely, we do.
So can you share with me that investigation into that 911 call? What are you guys going to be doing in order to figure out who that person was? Was that person a student? Was that person inside of that building? Or were they calling from outside? What does that investigation look like?
It looks like the local, state, and federal agencies are going to try their best to find out who made that call and do everything we can to bring them to justice.
So that person, if they're listening to the news tonight, they need to know that you guys are looking for them so that you guys can hold them responsible.
We won't just keep playing on their phone.
Do you know if that call came from inside of the school or outside of the school, or have you not determined that yet?
It's not been determined at this time where it was made from.
Did you have other schools go into a lockdown mode in your counties, or is that something for the school districts to know?
I don't have that information.
I think all schools went into lockdown when this one did.
They went into lockdown, and then once you guys started clearing, school director allowed them to go back into normal operation. They kept volunteer lockdown while you guys were there.
Thank you.
I do want to touch on this. She touched on it briefly, but I want to elaborate. If you could talk on this, Sheriff. Despite the fact that you said this was a hoax, in the moment for those students in that school, it wasn't that way for them, and they still were shaken. Parents were still emotional. What is your message to them today after such a traumatic experience at school?
That's what we've always said. We've always wanted the teachers, when we do the training and the drills, to educate their students to be prepared to respond when you've got a lockdown. And this school done an excellent job in locking down like they're supposed to, like they're trained. And it's hard on the students, it's hard on the faculty, and it's hard on the officers going in, because we're the ones that have to make entry and go in. And if you have an active shooter situation, you may have to step over wounded kids and faculty to get to the shooter. And we are human beings, and we have feelings too, and it makes it hard on us. So when we're going to this scene, all us officers, and EMS, fire, and everybody, our adrenaline's flowing, because the quicker we get there, the more lives we can save.
And I guess it just goes to say that if anything ever did happen, you guys got the backs of the kids in your county.
Yes.
If you could talk to the person that made the phone call right now and say something to that person, what would you say?
Hopefully we can say it in person.
Is there a message you'd like to give to that person about how making a threat like that is, it can really cause a lot of fear and a lot of stress, and for you all and your officers going in that situation?
Right. We've tied up a lot of resources today and put a lot of fear in parents and kids throughout our community, you know. So the hoax or prank, if that's what it was, has caused a lot of problems today.
Can you give us any more details of just exactly how you know this is a hoax? Just, is there anything right there that you can share?
It's an ongoing investigation, and we're on it. Our detectives and TBI are on it right now.
So TBI is assisting you guys now with this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. They've been here all morning.
If this person does come forward, you find out where that call came from, will they be charged with anything, and if so, what would it be?
I have no idea. That'd be up to the Attorney General.
One more question, guys.
So this investigation moving forward, we're looking mostly at that phone call when you swept the building, correct, and made sure that there was nothing that would make that threat credible. So the next part of this investigation is just focusing on finding who made that phone call, or is there anything else included?
Tracking down who made the phone call. There'll be a lot of IT stuff going on here that we'll let the experts handle that.
When's the next time you guys will be updating us on this investigation?
You will hear from us next time there's something to update. I know many of you like to call and see if there is, but we will send out something on social media, or TBI will send something out. We'll get the word out. But as far as another press conference, unless something that really develops, then we won't be doing one of these.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.